Hello and welcome to Drive and Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan,
I'm Ryan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into today's movie, I want to talk to you about our Patreon over at patreon.com/Drive and Double Feature Podcast. We have a bunch of bonus content, quizzes. We rank movies over there. It's a blast. And just for $5 a month, you get that and you help support the channel. But no main show content is locked behind Patreon. But getting into today's movie, well, I should say getting into this week, we're back at it. Bondzilla. It's another week of this. I haven't counted, but we're pretty deep into this. We're into the 70s with both franchises. We've covered a whole bunch of them. And I'm excited to start today with the man with the golden gun. 1974, James Bond. Roger Moore is back. Guy Hamilton is back. John Barry, the composer's back. Everybody's back at it.
Well, you got the title wrong.
What'd I say?
Well, you said The Man with the Golden Gun, but it's actually called Knick Knack's Big Adventure.
Hey, yeah. Knick Knack. I love Knick Knack, and we'll get into a little more Knick Knack. They should have made a like a side movie just about him.
Yeah, like they did for Solo. It just would be whatever. Yeah,
Knick Knack,
Knick
a
Knack.
James Bond adventure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that would really work. What a movie. I actually, once again, we're kind of getting in the weird territory because I don't have a lot of time with Roger Moore's stuff, so this is another new one for me. Have you seen this one before?
I have, and
Okay.
at the time, it was probably my favorite Roger Moore movie when I was younger.
Okay.
Now my opinion has changed,
Okay.
but it was probably like in my mind the most action-packed one. So of the
I can
ones I
see.
had seen, but I remember I had a lot of bias going into it when I watched that movie originally because
Really?
um, I like so many other kids of the '90s, I was an avid player of GoldenEye
Oh,
64.
oh, oh God.
I
I'm just
know
kidding. I love
us
that
us
game.
us 30-year-olds getting mad, but anyway, um, you could honestly you could do like a multiplayer, and
Hmm.
unlocking the golden gun was a feature in
Yep.
that game. And so I was just like, there it is, it's the golden gun, this is what it's referencing.
Yeah, that's pretty. No, that is a really good reason because that's what I thought of the whole time I was watching this. I was thinking about the dang golden gun that's in GoldenEye. I forget, how do you get the golden gun? Because you can unlock that. I forget how you get it.
Don't you have to like beat the whole game on like double secret agent?
I think so on the hardest difficulty, which is crazy hard. So that is a big deal.
Right, and
Um,
then once you have that gun, it's one hit kills.
yeah, which is so much fun. But yeah, in my experience, I just really don't have a lot of experience with this. I had heard, and this is kind of just like reading around as far as critical reception at the time, that this was considered the worst Bond at the time, I should say, because as we move on, we'll probably have some that are worse. So I feel like maybe I came in with lowered expectations because I know not a lot of people like this one. I actually had a good amount of fun with this. I think my opinion of this is pretty elevated. I don't think it's one of the best. Don't get me wrong with that. But when I think about the series worst, this is better than Diamonds Are Forever. This is better than Thunderball to me. So I think it's not that bad. It's just a little goofier. It's definitely on the goofy side.
Yeah. Um, I don't agree, Nathan. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
you don't like it at all?
I didn't hate it, but it's definitely like the lower tier. I mean, it's I honestly I could go with either one at this point between Diamonds Are Forever and Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah.
Uh, it just there's so much in here that I remember liking a lot more when I was younger.
Mm,
Now there is some great stuff in here too. Don't like, but I just like a lot of this stuff like leading up to it, and some of the characters in there I just did not like at all,
mm.
and I really wanted to like it a lot more, but it definitely treads into like this like some of the silliness silliness moments. And honestly, like the scene that we're going to talk about later, it's like one of the most awful choices I've seen for a scene.
Oh, okay. I'm excited to hear because I mean there are definitely issues with this movie. Don't get me wrong. And there's like, I remember there's one scene that we'll talk about later that I watched, and I wonder if it's the same. It might not be, but where something happens, and I was like, oh, okay. Like literally because I was really enjoying it up to a certain point, and then like I really think it tapers off in the end. Like there's like one scene that happens where I feel like is the cutoff.
Yeah.
But this movie, Guy Hamilton directed, like I said, but it is his last time directing one of these movies. After a streak of 3 movies, because he made Diamonds Are Forever, he made Live and Let Die, and this one. Actually, another last time. It's the last time Tom Mankiewicz helps write a script for this, and it's the last time that Harry Saltzman produces one of these movies. So, and we'll kind of get into that, I think, maybe towards the end of this, but getting into the movie, we actually get introduced to the villain of this movie very early, who is played by Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee just rocks, he's pretty awesome. I don't know how you felt about him in this movie.
Oh, he's easily the best part of this movie for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's top tier, like Bond villain,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. I mean, because they very much claim like he's like the anti Bond, like he's
Yeah.
like Bond, there's like they have like that scene later, and like Bond kills for his country, but this guy just kind of kills because it's like a fun sport, and he wants to
Yeah.
he wants to kill the best killers in the world, and
Mm-hmm.
that's that's how the movie starts. He's hunting down a mobster.
Yeah. Nick Nack like hires a mobster, and like the whole idea is like, oh yeah, I'm setting up my boss. Like I'm gonna get him killed so I get the island. And Nick Nack is a little person played by
Herbe Villages.
Perfect, um who is another great character. I think him and Christopher Lee work off each other because Christopher Lee's an extremely tall guy, and they got this little guy with them who helps them out along the
Uh,
way.
oh, I mean, in terms of Hitchman for
Mhm.
Bond movies, best one in my opinion.
I could see it. Yeah. He's just really recognizable, and like he gets a lot more time than you would expect. There's like henchmen like Whisper, I think about from the last movie, who is a good henchman, don't get me wrong, but like him versus Nick Nack, like I just feel like Nick Nack gets actually a lot more development as a
Well,
character.
well, yeah, it's like Whisper is he has a fun gimmick, and Teehee,
Hmm.
he's got a fun little gimmick. It's characters you like to see, but
Yeah.
they're not ones you get invested in. But it's Nick Nack is definitely the one where you're like, oh well, this guy's he's so entertaining. He's got like a whole
Yep.
motive. He's got a backstory. I really want to see more of this guy.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I love that. And I mean, we get a reoccurring character later in this movie, which is bizarre to me, and we'll talk about that. I wish Nick Nack would return later. I think that would be awesome, but I don't think that's gonna happen. But
No,
yeah,
definitely not.
yeah. But we get the opening, which is Christopher Lee like in his training grounds, which is like a carnival fun house with like mirrors and crazy lights and a mannequin of James Bond.
Well, it's like a whole wax museum.
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, I get that it's Christopher Lee's training ground, so like anything could happen, and like it's like a bizarre like thing, but it feels like instead of feeling a training ground, it just seems like an easy way to kill somebody because Christopher Lee knows the layout, and then like the henchman, this mobster, he's gonna be confused at where he's at. He's got the upper hand.
Well, that's the thing. Like Christopher Lee likes to play up the whole like, oh, there's a great sport in this whole thing, and then
Hmm.
but there's really not because it's like an unwinnable game. He's like he holds all the cards, he knows everything.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's what makes that character a lot of fun. And I guess moving into that, this is kind of our opening, really simple, sets up our villain, and then we get our opening title sequence, which is kind of a basic. At least I'm talking about the video. The video is very basic. The song is "Man with the Golden Gun" by Lulu, and um up to this point, I think this is my least favorite James Bond theme.
It's the weakest
Yeah.
out of all the ones we've seen so far. Well, it's definitely no Three Blind Mice. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, Three Blind Mice is like here, and then Lulu's Man with the Golden Gun's like down here. So, I'm sorry, podcasting listeners, you couldn't see my hand gestures there. But yes.
No, yeah, I agree. It's very basic. There's not really like a catch to it. I mean, they do say the man with the golden gun,
They
but it's
do.
just like even like the melody of it is sounds like almost like it's mimicking the James Bond theme song a lot.
Yeah, and it's so all over the place because, like, I think about Live and Let Die, where that changes genre in a way, right? It kind of hops around, but it flows perfectly. This is like a sudden, like, now we're doing it slow, now we're doing it fast, now there's like a weird guitar in the background. And it's all way too loud compared to Lulu's voice. I know she's considered a good singer, but I wouldn't think so from this song.
Whoa, you're calling Lulu poo poo?
I didn't say that. Those words didn't come out my mouth.
Shots fired.
Yes, yeah, but I think I'm just famous for talking crap on singers here on Drive and Double
Oh,
Feature.
that's like a common theme for you, honestly.
I know, right? I feel like
Poor Sean Mendes still hasn't recovered.
I know Shawn Mendes hasn't made a new song since, and I don't think he's going to. Good. I ruined
Whoa.
career.
Well, no, I don't know. It's not bad, but it's just we're spoiled at this point, and
Yes, yeah, we have some real masterpieces up until
uh,
now.
I mean, even stuff like I know you weren't a big fan of Thunderball, but like the Thunderball theme song is great,
Yes, yeah.
and or that's kind of what seems like. Oh well, the movie may have not been top tier, but all the songs have just been knocking it out of the park each time. So
Yeah. So when we get one that's like maybe not like horrible, but like it's just kind of meh, maybe is the best word, mediocre. It kind of stands out. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, I
Um
mean, when you go from Paul McCartney like to this, it's like wow, like
yeah,
this is how far we come. We don't get world class performers on every single song.
yeah, we've got a real drop in quality. You were right. um but I mean, moving into that, this movie has a weird theme around it, and it fits into the 70s. It's about the energy crisis I was about to say in America, but no, it's an across the globe, obviously. And
Wow, how's this movie stay so relevant?
I don't know. It really is. M receives a bullet in the mail with 007's number on it. So James Bond is quickly pulled out of that. And then James Bond I kind of like this interaction because M's like, you're fired. It's unsafe. You just need to get away from here.
Well, yeah, because M is kind of insinuating. He's just like, oh, well, we're taking off this case. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to go take a vacation or if you want to tender your resignation, I'll accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, because they're worried that Scaramanga is still going to go after Bond and kill him in the line of duty, and
Mm-hmm.
they really want this one mission to be accomplished. And Bond is very adamant at first, being like, "No, I want to see this mission out."
Yeah.
And then M ain't having it, but Bond just kind of turns to him like as he's walking out the door. He says, "Now, what if Scaramanga was dead before?" And he's like, "Well, that'd be entirely different, wouldn't it?" So he's basically
Mm-hmm.
he's going off the grid for this particular mission because it's
Yeah.
very much like unofficial, like, hey, if you want to go do that, that's up to you, but I officially by MI6, that's not
Yeah.
an official mission.
Yeah, but I do think it sets that up. But I mean, this is later in the movie, and it's actually a couple times it makes it feel like it's an MI6 mission because he even goes to Q because he finds the bullet in a woman's belly button. Very James Bond thing to happen. And then Q tests it, and then later on they go to a secret base where he's like, yeah, I'm on the hunt after this guy. So it definitely feels like it became a real mission, even though it's like you said, it's kind of like an off the grid Bond movie.
Yeah, I mean, they never like officially say like this is your mission now once this is
Yeah.
over. But it's never that never happens in this movie. It's very much like I said, he's like
Mhm.
this is an unsanctioned mission, but then it's very much just like, oh, okay, well, here's all the tools necessary for you to complete this mission.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, James Bond kind of goes on the hunt. He finds the belly button like bullet lady, and that scene, it's whatever. It's a little it's definitely Bond doing his skeezy stuff as usual.
I I thought the first half of this movie was pretty dull,
You think
honestly,
so? Yeah.
and not until Bond and Scaramanga start like interacting with each other, that's when I started getting more hooked into the movie.
That's crazy because that's pretty late into the movie.
I know, but I don't know. There's some parts in there I like, but when I was like heavily invested in the movie, that's when it was.
Yeah, I gotcha. And yeah, and I mean I get that because it is a very slow getting there movie because we know who the bad guy is. We've already been introduced to him. He's talked, and then James Bond knows absolutely nothing other than that Scaramanga is a crazy assassin that could kill James Bond instantly if he wanted to.
He's an assassin. He eventually runs into Scaramanga's girlfriend or
Mm.
mistress or whatever, and Bond like threatens to murder this woman and like is and there's like a scene too where Bond like takes her arm and like is about to break it type of thing.
Mhm. Oh, that's
And
he's like really violent in that scene.
yeah, and Guy Hamilton, I brought this up before, like during Goldfinger, like Guy Hamilton's just like, oh, well, she's a bad woman. Who cares if she gets
Yeah,
beaten, type of thing. And um, but I remember reading like Roger Moore like hated doing this scene
that makes sense.
because it's very much he said like Bond. I like he does not see Bond as the violent type of guy at this point, and he
Mhm.
says if anything he probably would have charmed the information out of her.
Yeah, and because not only does he hold her arm behind her back, he like slaps her hard across the face to get this information.
And the only information he gets out of her
Mhm.
is he has three nipples, and
Yeah, exactly.
and he's just like that's as useful as not having any information.
Yeah, but it comes handy a little bit later. Um, but yeah, this is weird. I forget. Does the scene with the bullet maker come before or after this? Where he has the gun at him, and it's a gun meant for somebody with three fingers, so it shoots like an inch lower. And he
Mm-hmm.
points at the guy's groin. He's like, I have this gun pointed at your groin. And it's just I thought that was a funny little scene.
Yeah, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Hmm. That's Roger Moore. I feel like because as we watched both these movies, I'm starting to like Roger Moore as Bond. He's a pretty good Bond. He brings his own style to it. I think that line delivery is exactly where he needs to be, delivering some
But
one-liners.
that's like we said, he's the funny Bond, he's the witty Bond, so
Yeah.
he very much has like a one liner for almost every situation. I mean, Sean Connery was kind of getting there, but
Mhm.
I feel like that's kind of Roger Moore's whole forte.
Yeah, exactly. That's where he worked best. But yeah, it ends up like going crazy places. This movie takes place in both Hong Kong and Thailand. The place that Tar was exiled to, which is horrible.
Who?
Tar.
Never heard of it.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe one day on Drive and Double Feature we'll talk
Oh yeah,
about
that'd be a
Tar.
great one.
Oh yeah, it would be wonderful for the show. Uh, but this is where another character shows up. So we have a returning character, and I really wasn't expecting this. Sheriff Pepper shows up from Live and Let Die, who is the southern cop. I guess he's vacationing in Thailand, and he runs
You
into
know,
Bond.
when you think of small town sheriff, you definitely think of him vacationing in Bangkok.
Yeah, with his wife. Like that is so bizarre. Like that, of course he's there at the same time. And there's a really wild scene with with the little boy who's trying to sell the wood elephant.
Oh, that that was the other scene too. Roger Moore said he hated filming.
Yeah, I saw it happen. It made me bust out laughing. So there's a boy trying to sell a wooden elephant on like a tourist boat, and he literally gets pushed off the boat into the water. And so he hops into the boat with Roger Moore, and he's just trying to haggle with Roger Moore, trying to get him to buy this wooden elephant. Roger Moore just pushes him back into the water real hard too. Like he like this
Well,
kid
no, oh,
goes into the water.
well, yeah, the kid's trying to get him
That's
to
right.
buy the elephant. He's like, "Look, I'll give you 20,000 if you're able to make this boat go faster." And
Mm-hmm.
he flips the accelerator, the boat
Mm-hmm.
goes faster, and he's like, "There you go, sir, 20,000." And then he's like, "I'll pay you later," and then just throws him in.
Uh-huh. And that little kid would later go on to be the Russian guy from GoldenEye. The this is a little bit later. I'm kind of skipping ahead, but we'll go back. But just since we're on the sheriff, I do want to talk about there's a big car chase scene later in the movie that is insane because there's a stunt where there's two ramps flipped on their sides, and they're able to drive a car and do like a full 360 twirl in the air and land. And I remember seeing that and being like, oh, that's because, I mean, of course CGI wasn't a thing, but there is photo trickery. No, this stunt was done for real, and it actually, they used computers in 1974 to make it work. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, they did that, and this is the scene I was talking about. It has a really awful choice
Yeah.
because it has one of the most impressive looking car stunts that you've
Yes.
ever
Yeah.
seen in a movie. It looks amazing. I don't want to downplay it. It is one of the best car stunts you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then they do the most ridiculous slide whistle noise, like
Yeah.
whoop, like
Why did they do that? Why did Guy Hamilton was in the editing rooms like slide whistle that, put it in there?
so that was his direction.
Really? Oh my
Um,
god.
so I don't know if you watched the documentary of
Yes,
this, right?
yeah, I did, yeah.
So when they were talking about that, they said that the stunt looked so good that it looked too perfect.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And Guy Hamilton was like, "Well, can we do that again? Because it was too perfect, and the audience won't believe that it actually happened." And then everyone's like, "No, we are not doing that again."
Yeah.
And so allegedly, in the editing room, like that was one of his direction points, was to put that slide whistle noise in there because he was saying, "Oh well, even the audience is going to think this looks silly." So it's like,
Oh.
oh, let's just make a big ha ha moment like off of this one like
That's that
impressive scene.
that sucks because I think that was a bad because I noticed the same thing. I was like, what's up with the slide whistle? Because like 1974, we're at like like at the top of like like redneck car movies where they're doing insane stuff. I think that's fine. I think that's totally believable in this movie.
And considering too, there's so much in this one stunt that could have gone wrong, and
Yes.
that I mean, they made that was one thing they did like
Hmm.
express in the documentaries. Like this, the guy could have died. There was so
Yeah.
many efforts. Like they had a crane just off camera to like lift him out of the water. They had
Hmm.
divers in the water just in case, and like this guy was strapped into like a harness that it was like they said that he was strapped in so heavily that it was faster to pull the car out than it was to unstrap the driver.
That man, that stunt driver, I couldn't imagine having that job, honestly. Horrifying.
Where was Hal Needham when you need him?
I know, right? What now? Need him when you need him.
I know. I just said
Oh,
that. I was literally thinking that as I was coming out of my mouth.
wow, you're comic genius. That's good. That's good. But yeah, in between this, we get introduced to another Bond girl.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
I no, I do want to talk about more about the sheriff. It's very
Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah.
it I I get a kick out of some of this character, like just the fact that he's here, and he's
Yes.
like, and he is just like so excited to see Bond again because like before
Yeah.
it was like he hated Bond, he was trying to get
Hmm.
him arrested, but that like of all the people he gets into the car like with Bond and he's just like, hey, you're that secret agent fella. and, and
Yeah,
he's like,
and he loves it.
he's and it's funny because there's like a character in the trunk and he's like that Bond is talking to because they have a radio and he's like, give me that radio, Harry, call my wife, tell her I'm on official business. And they actually get stopped by the police and the police, he like pulls out his like
Uh-huh.
Louisiana state badge and is like, I'm here on official police business.
Yeah, and then of course the wallet he pulls out with like the badge is like so long it goes like way down. That scene right there is actually the scene I was talking about where I was like, oh, what the hell are they doing? I'm talking about the bad guys, Nick Nack and Salamanca. They get into a warehouse when they're on the run. They put plane wings, like it's like a transformed plane car, and they fly off in this plane car and everybody's just like staring at them, and I was looking at this thing, I was like, are you kidding me? This is like actually like jumping the shark moment in a way.
It's not quite as goofy as the Land Rover chase scene, but
No.
it's up there.
Yeah, it's pretty up there. It's really goofy. What did you think about the Bond girl, Mary Goodnight, in this one?
My least favorite Bond girl so far.
I can agree with that. Well, sorry, the Bond girl in Diamonds Are Forever is pretty bad too. It's
Yeah,
tough.
the only reason why I would say it's a little different is this one. It seemed like Bond hated this girl like at
Yeah,
first.
he's really mean to her because she's kind of there. She blocks the way with her car to get chased after this guy, and he is like it's probably the angriest I've ever seen Bond. Like he is to a woman at least. Like, usually he tries to schmooze him a little bit very soon after, but he's pretty like, oh, you just like ruined everything. Like, like we got to get things set up again. Like he is
Yeah,
mad at her.
yeah, and it's so he's trying to really seduce this other girl that we've mentioned before, and
Hmm.
there's a scene that is awful too because I mean where he's got Mary Goodnight in the room with him and they're about to have sex and
Of
then the
course.
other girl comes in and like throws her in the closet and it's like she has to like be in the closet and listen to Bond like having sex with this other woman. It's just like
Mm-mm.
I was like, ugh. And I'm like, and I don't know. And I'm like, you want me to buy that there's like romantic chemistry between these two? And it's like,
Yeah.
it seems like Bond could not care less about this girl.
No, like this is probably the most Bond has felt like, other than maybe Live and Let Die, where he ruins a whole woman's life for sex. But it seems like here, like he could care. Like it's odd for a Bond movie where the Bond girl is like way more wanting Bond than Bond even wants to do with her.
Well, I mean, because like the last one, he Solitaire, he's able to seduce her, and
Yeah.
she does eventually come around to liking him. But this one, she's like the needy girlfriend that wants the Bond to like notice me, like why can't we
Uh,
go on a date, like type of thing. And
yeah.
that is supposedly that's like a lot of the criticism for this movie is her specifically and
Yeah.
like that and the more comedic tones of this movie.
Yeah, because this movie definitely plays up the comedy. I mean, when you got a slide whistle playing over a car jump, you're really pushing it. I mean, I do think the best parts of this movie is finally whenever you do catch up with Christopher Lee and Roger Moore, and they get to be in the room together, and Christopher Lee gets to play off of James Bond. It starts to work there.
That scene, I mean, it's great. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the whole highlight of the movie. Is just like I said, Christopher Lee is one of the best Bond villains for me,
yeah,
and I I wanted to see a lot more of that, and like because they even have that scene, the dialogue, which I kind of alluded to earlier, where Christopher Lee is talking to Bond and being like, "It's like you enjoy killing just as much as I do," and
hmm
it's you kind of realize Bond has killed a lot of people,
yeah.
and he hasn't really shown a whole lot of remorse for
No.
it. So it's one of those where you're kind of like, does he enjoy killing? I mean, like, what's his stance on this killing
Yeah,
stuff?
and he never says no to like not enjoying killing. It's more like I do it for my country. You do it just to do it. I get asked by my queen to do this, but he never really says if he doesn't enjoy it or not. I mean, I'm sure James Bond does because he kills a lot of people in a lot of movies.
But that's a common trait of other movie characters. They do kill a lot of people, but I just think, and that doesn't necessarily make Bond a bad guy or anything, but it's
No.
just but I like the idea of a villain kind of pointing the mirror back at Bond and being like,
Yeah.
well, what makes you so different than all the kills that I've done?
Kind of taking the action hero and being like, look, you're like, hey, like there are some like negatives with you as well, right? Like you're doing some things a little wrong. Because I mean, that's it almost seemed like that Christopher Lee almost admired him in a way. That's what it felt like. Like, hey, me and you are very similar. We're not going to see each other for much longer, so let's spend some time together. Because he kind of gives him a tour. They do a lot of talking for a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. I mean, again, uh, so there is a scene where Bond is flying into the island,
Hmm.
and they even like Christopher Lee's like I guess air crew or whatever. Like, should we shoot him down, sir? He's like, no, let him through. And
Yeah,
and again, it's like so many moments he could have killed him, but
yeah.
this one, it's a little more forgivable
I
in
think
my
they
opinion. In my opinion,
I think they try to make a little more sense out of it because they even meet up before where he kills his own mistress and they're at like a boxing ring and even Christopher Lee's like, hey, I have nothing against you, just don't go looking for me, okay? I'm not going to kill you. And it almost seemed like I don't have anything against you, man, but like I don't really want to kill you, but you're here, you're in my territory, I'm going to kill you now. Because the whole thing is with the bullet and everything, come to reveal it was his mistress sending everything to 007 to try to help her out. And it was kind of like a two-way thing. It's almost like James Bond just ended up in this situation.
yeah, but he does admire him, and he
Mm-hmm.
does. I mean, they do eventually. Scaramanga wants to have the big showdown
Yeah.
at that at the end of the movie. But I do like the scene where Bond arrives on the island and Nick Nack shows up with the platter and the champagne, and then
uh,
Christopher Lee just shoots the champagne and just sprays all over Nick Nack.
I know. I felt kind of bad for it.
And then Nick Nack wants Christopher Lee dead, and too.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
he tells Bond multiple times, "I will help you if you just have to kill him. I get this whole island."
Yeah, exactly. And he like shows him to like places and everything. And it's not even the end of the movie because there's the big showdown like in the fun house. And Roger Moore plays him a little dirty because he sets it up pretty evenly. It's like a classic duel. Like, all right, I got a gun, you got a gun. We walk away from each other, we shoot at each other, kind of deal. But it becomes a lot more than that. But Roger Moore does a classic trick. I've probably seen this a bunch in different movies. I wish I could think of them right now, but I've definitely seen it before where someone pretends to be a mannequin and then, or, it's usually someone pretends to be a reflection in a mirror in a fun
Yeah.
house and then they shoot him. So he does that old trick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that before too, but again, it's drawing a blank on what I remember.
Yeah.
But
It's also 74, so it probably wasn't even done that much by then. That's probably just like 50 years later kind of deal.
it's like, oh wow, what an original idea.
Yeah, someone in the theater. Oh my God. In that guy was the director of John Wick Chapter 2. So but yeah, I mean, I do think the showdown really works. I do really like a scene later where because they have to dismantle because come to find out they're using solar power to create like this crazy weapon. And I actually thought it was kind of a tense scene where he has to pull the module out of the machine and he thinks the laser's turned off that could like basically blast a hole in his head, but literally the sun's covered by clouds. So like there's shots of just a cloud passing by the sun and inches closer and closer to the laser turning on. And I actually thought that was kind of tense. Of course, I know James Bond's not going to die. I know
I
Roger
thought
Moore
he
returns.
was.
Yeah, you thought we were moving into Timothy Dalton next.
No, I just thought that was the end of the series.
Oh wow, there's more, a lot
Uh,
more.
oh, good.
Yeah. I hope you enjoy them.
No, I wanted to talk about one thing. This might be kind of jumping over though, but
No, yeah.
I I think being like the Bond movies seem to go like a different tone in each movie, like do like a new genre. Like
Yeah.
the other one we kind of talked about was kind of like black exploitation almost, but
Mm.
this movie is almost kind of like a martial arts movie.
It kind of, yeah. He does go to martial arts school at one point.
Which that's a very silly scene too, because
Very.
he goes there, he beats up like everybody, and then like because there's a whole other like section we didn't even mention of like this other like millionaire guy
Hmm.
that the one that hired Scaramanga
Oh yeah.
originally, and again he figures out who Bond is. He knocks out Bond. Now again, Bond's unconscious, and they're about to like kill him right in the middle of the courtyard. He's like, "No, this is my house. Don't kill him
Oh
here."
yeah. Isn't it Knick Knack that almost kills him, right? Like,
yeah, with like a trident or
yeah,
something.
it's literally right there. He's about to hit him in the head, and Bond just miraculously survives. Yeah, we didn't
No,
get it.
no, no, no. He says, "I don't want my house to get dirty," so they
Well,
take
sorry,
Bond
yeah.
to they take him to the martial arts school, and he has to like fight all other martial artists. And it's funny because like the point where he finally gets the upper hand, he jumps out the window, and of course, like all of the Bond's friends are just waiting outside, like, "Oh, we're here to protect
Yeah,
you."
and I think he asks like, "Why were you here?" And like they're like, "Oh, this place is owned by that guy, so that's why we were here." Like, but how did you know to go here?
They were at the exact window he jumped out of,
Yeah, and of
and
course, go ahead.
and of course, every Asian person in this movie knows martial arts.
Exactly, the two young women in the back of the car who were like the cops' cousins. They can just lay anybody out with like kung fu moves. It's goofy. But yeah, no, I mean, that's this movie in a nutshell. It's really silly. We didn't even talk about how Roger Moore puts on a fake nipple to pretend to be the bad guy at one point.
Oh yeah, and then I like it too because once that scene's over, he just like rips the nipple off and throws it out, like, "Don't need this anymore."
Right? I was like, come on, man. Like, you gotta know that they're watching you. You could have at least waited or something.
Well, it's funny because he obviously knew that he was James Bond, and it was just like
Yeah.
he did all that for nothing.
Yeah. I think Christopher Lee's the one who's watching, and he's like, he laughs. He's like, oh, yeah, I know what's going on here. This is all set up because he knows
Uh,
everything.
he does.
Doesn't James Bond know at this point that every bad guy just knows everything?
Yeah, I mean, he's. I don't think James Bond has fooled too many people with his alternative disguises.
I really don't. I think about On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where he pretends to
Yeah,
be the guy for a huge chunk of the movie.
yeah, like the nerdy guy or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this movie, it's just silly. I don't know. I think you enjoyed it a little less than I did. I had a good time with it. I won't say it's one of the best though, and it'll probably go down further the more and more James Bonds we watch. But at this point, it was goofy, and it at least has some memorable characters in it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not a bad entry. I mean, there's definitely going to be worse,
Oh yeah,
but for my money, it's not. It's there's very few redeeming qualities.
yeah. And I will just kind of go over reception really quickly. It was not reviewed very well at the time. Everybody was saying it was kind of the worst of the bunch. And it's still continued and kind of agreed upon to this day that this was not great. I probably the same feelings we do because the characters are memorable, but I just the whole everything in it. And this movie cost $7 million to make. It made $97.6 million. That is a hit, but in classic, like I feel like we talked about this before, in classic fashion, this was a disappointment. This was not what they wanted for whatever reason, and actually that's why Harry Saltzman left. And I feel like we're going to see a little bit of a change in things as we move on, where it's just Cubby Broccoli being the main producer on this.
Well, didn't what isn't what happened is that Harry Saltzman sold his half to the parent company of Eon. Isn't
I
that like how Eon came into the picture?
I believe so, yeah. How they own almost all the movies except for one that we've covered so far. So
Well, oh yeah, and another one coming
yeah,
up.
later on.
But yeah, I there's going to be some changes most likely, but
Mhm.
uh, I I'd say give it a watch, a light recommend for me.
I'd give it a light recommend. There's a lot of other James Bond movies that I would say watch those before you get to this one, but this one's not a bad choice. Just knowing you're going in for a sillier entry.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I think that about wraps it up, right?
that's it.
All right. Well, James Bond will return in 3 years in The Spy Who Loved Me.
Terrific.
Yeah. But Ryan, what are we going to be covering on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, going back to Toho,
Oh my
and
God.
doing another Godzilla movie. I mean, there's only a handful left.
It's really sad. I can't believe we've covered this many. Aren't we at like
Yep.
12 entries so far?
Yeah, I mean, there's after the one we're going to talk about on Thursday. There's only three more left. We're in the final
Wow.
four
That's
for
crazy.
the Showa era, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Nathan, we are going to be talking about Godzilla versus Gigan, and that is on YouTube for free.
Just what I like to hear. Well, I'm excited to watch that. But if you have any recommendations or if you just like the show and you want to talk to us, you can email us at driveindoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us. Check us out on Twitter over at DIDFpod. But until next time.
Until next time.